Alright guys, a lot of people have been asking this for a long while now, and here it is, Toolbox Tour updated. Thought I might go ahead and just give a brief overview of the entire garage first though. Recently put in a new workbench, 16 feet long, roughly 2 feet wide. I should say a depth on that. Anyway, so about 2 feet of workable space there, and I do have the toolboxes split up now so that the rolling bottom portions of those boxes are under it, and then the top boxes that I had on them before are on top. Over here I did get some heat this last winter, so we've got the Beacon Morris gas-fired heater in here, thank goodness. Christmas gift from my dad. Thanks, Dad. I got a fan over here. I actually found that in the top of the garage here, up above the rafters or whatever you call it. So nonetheless, there it is, just to move around a little bit of air. Still got the old Husky compressor in here, working fairly well for us. Very happy with it, no complaints. Let's get on the toolboxes, shall we? Up at the top here, and I'm not sure how easy it'll be able to see, but we've got some ratchets and then extensions all on the top up here. Sockets under the rag that I generally use to wipe my hands. 3/8 drive sockets up front here. We've got the 1/2 inch drive sockets in the back. Also in the back I've got my lesser used ratchets, so I've got a snap-on ratcheting 3/8 inch drive breaker bar, and fairly recently, there's my torque wrench, fairly recently picked up this much longer handled Mack wrench here that's pretty nice, honestly. So use that when I need to get the big stuff broken loose, and worst case scenario I'll grab my 3/4 inch breaker bar. A lot of stuff in here hasn't changed too much. Still got the pry bars, excuse me, not the pry bars, I've still got the chisels, punches, brass punches and things up here. Also some brushes, junk, well, quote junk 3/8 drive ratchets. Those are decent ratchets, but in the bag I've got a bunch of 2-2 valve train parts and other odds and ends. Next drawer down is one of the drawers I keep filthy because honestly I know where everything's at in it, and it's the cut and stuff drawer. If I need to cut something, I grab something out of here. So I've got some grinding discs, I've got some cut-off wheels, flap discs, scissors, tin snips, string trimmer line there. So pretty straightforward. Next drawer down, this one's got some files but also unfinished electrical business in here. Don't know why I've started doing it that way, but nonetheless, so tons of relays over here, zip ties, other little, again, odds and ends in this drawer. Nothing too crazy there. Vacuum line, Granger valves for the boost control, all sorts of good stuff in here. But again, nothing exciting. This box doesn't get a ton of use, more for storage. AN wrenches, AN fittings over here. Not sure again, there we go. AN fittings, got fuel injection hose clamps along with some regular hose clamps through here. A few fuel pressure regulators up at the front. In the back I do have some of the lines that are the PTFE style lines. So use that a little bit here and there. Step over here to the red box where I've got all sorts of various cleaners, assembly lube, anything else that comes out of a spray can. Of course, we got the Croil up there, very important to me. Up at the front of the box, I keep my measuring tape. This is really some phenomenal anti-seize, by the way. This stuff's no joke. Started using it on all the parts that are used to hold down the turbo, the exhaust manifold studs, the nuts for the turbo, the bolts, everything, and they come right off even after hard and relatively long use. Pretty nice brake parts lube here. I like that stuff. Multimeter, and actually I just got this recently. Fairly happy with it, especially for $5 or $6, whatever it was off of Amazon. But the bolt size gauge, the only thing I don't like about it is that it doesn't have the metric bolt, or yeah, the nut gauges. Doesn't have the metric nut gauges on it. Wish it had that, but whatever. Alright, let's get down to some wrenches here. You open this drawer up and we've got quite a few of them. So again, probably new since the last time that I had a video up, is the SK ratcheting wrenches with the kind of spline drive, if you will. I forget exactly what they call this, but these will do the torques and so many other different things, the square fasteners and what have you. Really like those. Nice and long too, and you can put a good amount of torque through them for what they are, so I'm very pleased with that. The random snap-on, you know, 1/2 inch, or not 1/2 inch, excuse me, 5/8 and 11/16. Some stubby wrenches up here, a lot of snap-on distributor wrenches, and a few cheapy stubby wrenches, gear wrench, ratcheting stubby wrenches. Got the angled snap-on and Mack standard wrenches here. Pretty much the whole Craftsman set. Some stuff might not be in here that was in here for the previous tour because I've taken a lot of stuff down into my basement. Craftsman Professional, which looks very, very, very similar to the SK stubby wrenches. Really like them. Do have a 3/4 snap-on there and 7/16, and yeah, what is that? I don't even know. 11/32. So I mean, you know, a decent mix of Mack, Craftsman, and snap-on in that drawer. In the next drawer here, most of the stuff in here is actually just Mack wrenches. So I've got no idea where I am going to use or when I'm going to use this Mack 1 3/8 wrench. I'm just not certain, but I got it for really cheap off of eBay. I thought I needed it for a certain bolt, but it ended up being kind of a funky size, a really oddball metric deal. So unfortunately now I've got a 3/8 drive, 1 3/8 wrench really. So anyway, just a bunch of Mack wrenches here, various types. I really love this Bonnie flare nut wrench that I've got, 7/8 and 1 inch. Does a phenomenal job for me. I just use it on all sorts of projects. Tie rod end jam nuts, things like that. I'll be honest, I put that 7/8 right over the tie rod ends on the little turbo Mopars and just wail away on this thing with a dead blow hammer until they come loose. And it hasn't broken, it just keeps coming back for more. Over here I've got all flare nut wrenches, various Mack and Craftsman flare nut wrenches. Deep offset Craftsman Professional wrenches there. And then over here again, same sort of a deal, just all kinds of Mack double box and offset wrenches. So these drawers, by the way, get a lot of use. I've been surprised with how much of the standard wrenches I've been using lately. Paint pens, a little bit of JB Weld, some Loctite over here, some epoxy, brake parts, supplies, all the little extra tube of polyurethane bushing grease that I get. Tire crayon. I love this stuff right here, by the way. I'm sure that there's other people that do it best that offer it, but this pipe thread stick, I use it on everything, and my only complaint would be that it gets really yellow and nasty looking if you don't clean up the joint very well afterwards, but nothing ever leaks. You can put it on wet, it doesn't matter. This is my go-to, and it's only like $1 a stick or something. Teflon tape. This drawer's probably changed quite a bit since the last time. I've got all of my Torx drivers here. I've got the English nut drivers here and the metric nut drivers here. At the very end, I've got the Robertson bits here. Pretty decent little set. I think this is just a Craftsman job that I got for Christmas. And good selection though. I mean, all sorts of good stuff in there, and very pleased with it. Last drawer these days is gaskets and other just parts. I mean, I've got a rear main seal for, I'm not sure even if there's a difference between the common block and non-common block main seals, but wheel bearings and just all sorts of different stuff in here. So I do have a little bit of a selection now of parts, so that way, oh, wheel bearing's going bad, I can replace it, I can throw it in, whatever. And now that I've got the heat, my life is a lot better in here in the winter too. So all right, another drawer of wrenches here. There she blows. Pretty much the same as last time, I'm sure. SK long pattern wrenches, I've had those well over a decade now and have served me beyond well. Couldn't have paid for themselves anymore. SK short pattern wrenches. I think I mentioned probably in the last video that when I was in college, there was a guy, when I went into the place for the first time, and he essentially gave me an invoice with like the list price and what he was going to charge me if I bought all of my SK stuff from them. And I definitely went back. It was about the same price as the Craftsman when I would go in there. So there's the SK wrenches, and I do have the 14. I've just got it in a car so that way there's a battery terminal that I use that one on if I need to. Craftsman ratcheting wrenches right here. Changed my life. Those things hold up like it's nobody's business, and you got to get this particular one, I would add, if they're still making this. But that style with that switch on there, I don't know if they call these Craftsman Professional or what, but that's the only way to go. I've never found another ratcheting wrench I like as much as those. I don't care if it's snap-on or anything else. 22mm SK wrench right here. Again, I know that these got some conversation in my last video, some comments where I've got the Craftsman, and I forget what they call these. You could probably check the comments in my last videos. But these Craftsman wrenches, this one's part number looks like 42995 on here. And these, I don't know why or how, but boy, these will get a stuck fastener off there. So use those on my turbos a lot. Maybe new, maybe not. I've got some bearing wrenches here from Mack. I've got the Craftsman Professional set of deep offset wrenches again. We talked last time about the Mack micro turn wrenches. There's a couple new ones here. I hunted down a few of the sizes that I oftentimes use. And I'll say this 15mm one right here, I have used extensively on turbo installations and things if I don't want to pull the head. Some Mack stubby wrenches here. And it's nice to have a little bit of a variety, and I'll show you why. If you look, sure, that looks to be about the same if we get right down on it. That's pretty darn close. But when you look at the snap-on, let's look at the 16mm here. The snap-on compared to the SK, the snap-on's quite a bit longer. So it's just nice to have that variety, because on occasion you're going to run into a situation where a little longer, a little shorter would help you out. Let's see, I don't know, just the random Matco 10mm, a couple random Craftsman ones that didn't end up in the basement. 13mm Mack wrench here with the kind of swivel socket end on it. I can use that on occasion, but doesn't see a ton of action in the drawer. We then have all of my flare nut wrenches that are metric, some Mack, some Craftsman. I do really enjoy the Craftsman wrenches because the Craftsman Professional, it does not have any offset to it, and at least for me, when it comes to flare nuts, I shouldn't really say flare nuts, but flare nut wrenches, getting that that nut off, holy cow, I think you can just put a lot more torque through the wrench into the fastener when you've got no angle on the head. So I tend to use the Craftsman ones almost more than anything else, although for metric I do have some of the Mack wrenches that are a little bit longer. You can't really make that out at all, but that are a little bit longer and still straight, no angle on that. So I will use the Mack ones pretty regularly too. Next drawer, screwdrivers. I do have the kind of the Torx driver with the 3/8 bit there, and Allen keys, some regular keys, some picks, trim tool, few random things in here. I also keep my writing tools that I've got out in the shop in here, and then the mirror I use to set the timing on the cars. One thing I've been really happy with lately, and I'm not just saying this because I did the German, had the German review these recently, but these Vera screwdrivers, they actually fit in my hand fairly well, and I have used that strike through piece on the back to free up a few things. I've been very pleased with them, especially for the money. You price them out against Snap-on or anything else, and Snap-on's got a nice grip on them, but boy, those Vera ones feel pretty good in my hand too. Obviously my impact drawer, impact gun, you're going to see a video coming up shortly on that to rebuild it. Had it for a very long time now, and it's time to be freshened up. Ratchet, a few other things obviously go without saying. The sockets are, generally speaking, SK in here. The vast majority of them are. Although, I do have, and picked up for, like, you know, when they had one of the crazy super sales, the Pittsburgh Sockets. I read on one of the web forums I'm on where a guy works on heavy equipment. He's like, oh yeah, I use the Harbor Freight ones all the time. I never have them break. Well, that's good enough for me. If you're working on a big cat or something like that, I'm not going to complain. One thing that I do, and I've seen, of course, other people do it, but nonetheless, just stick two of these bad lads together and blow out the shop with this. Pretty nice to have it. It just puts out so much more of a volume of air than the little guys like this. This is nice for the greater control and if you don't want to absolutely blow everything away, but when you're looking for the volume of air so that you can go ahead and blow out the shop, to me, nothing better. Next drawer, all the pliers. Pliers drawer here. A lot of guys ripped on me in the last video for my pliers collection. You know, the thing is, I just don't use a ton of them. I just don't. I don't find that I use it for what I do. And so it keeps my collection fairly limited. I'll tell you what, though. These Knipex Cobra head jobs, super nice, made in Deutschland, and they're just nice pliers. Just press the button to free it up. Yeah, maybe not. There we go. Press the button to free it up and adjust it. Pretty nice. Either way, I do have pretty good collection of snap ring and lock ring pliers. Piston ring expander, that's just a cheapy job, but nonetheless, a lot of Blue Point, Mack, Matco over here on this side of the drawer. And I think I picked all these things up for like 20 bucks off a guy on one of the websites I'm on. Man, I was in college and I needed like a pair, but this guy, he was local and happened to be on that website, and it was awesome. Great deal. Still appreciate them to this day, and I'll be using them here shortly. A lot of junk in the next drawer here. Can you tell that I've got some serious electrical projects going on right now? And just, I'm not even trying to clean out this drawer at this time. Just junk and whatever else. I've got to finish up a couple things, and I'm going to go through all the electrical stuff. So, some specialty tools in here. I've got the inner tie rod tool, piston ring compressor, more wire for that project. I've got the code scanner, fuel pressure gauge, compression gauge, some more extra bits. And hey, I just found some of these. I could use these. How about that? Didn't even know I had those in here. So these are locks for T2 style pistons. The Chryslers had floating pistons on the Turbo 2 cars, so just found some. Jackpot. And the bottom drawer, kind of a collection of stuff. I've got tape of various sorts in the back there. I've got some abrasives down here below, steel wool, sandpaper, what have you. Timing light, I've got the drill, heat gun, got die grinder there, just pick that up, and then I've got the angle grinder. So a little bit of everything down there in that bottom drawer, but it does well by us. Over here in the red box on the bottom, we've got some sockets, and the sets aren't complete. I've got a lot of stuff in the house, and I've also got a lot of stuff up in that top tray as you saw, so there's a ton of blank spots. And not only that, but yeah, I guess really in here I was going to say I don't use these very much, but actually all these are pretty much inside. So there you have it. The English drawer is going to be even crazier because I rarely use any of this. So some of it that's over here gets used, and that's fine. You'll see that I use a lot of 1/4 inch stuff more than anything else because it is actually somewhat organized. I've got like 2 Mack crowfoot wrenches because I hardly use them. Next drawer down, and this drawer does see some action. Steering wheel puller, double flare tools, tubing bender, brake stuff mainly. Do all my own brake work, obviously, and lately I've been really into upgrading the brakes on the front of the cars to the later 11 1/4 inch Vinna discs, so it's been a good time. The obligatory tap set, some drills, hole saw, helicoil, what have you. I mean, more taps, dies, good times in there. Specialty tools mainly in this drawer. So I've got this is kind of hard to find these days, the KD Tools hook style valve spring compressor, the hone for the cylinders, harmonic balancer puller for the neons, that front puller, some more pullers, timing belt tensioner for the 2225 cars right here, coil spring compressors. Back here, this is a cam sprocket holder, so lots of good stuff. This thing, someday I'll have a car that might be able to use it. It's a tie rod end adjuster, if you will, so you're supposed to put that on there and give it a turn, and it will bite into the grooves in the tie rod, but the tie rods on all the cars I've got are just too small, so not very useful right now, but someday maybe I'll own something big enough to need it. Down here, hammers, propane torch, hubcap puller / hubcap installer. So pretty cool. But that's it for the toolboxes, guys. We're still rocking with them after all these years. Very nice. Maybe someday I'll do a little bit of a review of the toolboxes, tell you which ones I like the best, which ones I don't. But honestly, for me, this setup works super well, and I'm happy to have it. Happy to have the whole garage, really. It wasn't very long ago when I was rolling around in the snow or the ice or the heat and the sun. So I'm just thrilled to be here.